such a catchy song. Well, welcome back, everyone, to the latest Needle Bar. You may notice we have two people on the screen right now. Jeff is currently in the back office trying to figure out his technical issue with his sound. So he will be back. But I'm Matt. Hi. And we have Justin over there.
Hello, everybody.
And if you didn't notice, we got a new background. So it's kind of a little teaser for the class that Jeff and I will be teaching over at SPSI on September 18th to the 19th. I do believe those are the correct dates about patches, and that is the background for the patch class. So if you want to learn how to do patches, it's going to have literally everything you're going to need to know.
Every little thing.
Everything. Let me go ahead and turn my extra light on. Boom, much brighter. All right, so what are we talking about today, Justin?
So we're talking about if you're working with a graphic designer or if you have in-house designers, basically the relationship between designing logos from new and embroidery. A lot of times you'll see universities and corporate entities that have these branding rules or branding guides that can cover a multitude of things of how the design is used, how the design is changed for certain applications as far as print or screen printing, embroidery, and it's basically the relationship of making sure that the designer understands limitations of embroidery, how to design for embroidery, so you're not coming up with these designs, getting final approvals and stuff, and then finding that a lot of the design itself doesn't work for embroidery. Then you're having to change a lot of things. A lot of times as digitizers, we're digitizing designs that have already been designed. They're just taking their business name or their team or whatnot, and they're digitizing it, for embroidery. And as digitizers, a lot of times we'll recognize, this can and can't work, or we have to modify the design. So if you are working with a designer and starting from that, that new concept, this is a good time to work all that out and make sure your design, there's a version of the design at least that will work for those decorating purposes. Mm-hmm. So, like I said, I know the company I work with does a lot of stuff for the University of Arizona here in Tucson. So they put out a branding guide, and it reviews everything as far as how they use their logo marks, their trademark designs, from color, sizing, how you add elements to the design. It's pretty in depth on what the rules that you can and can't use the designs, and guide you as far as any decorator or any printer or something like that.
And I know another really good one too that I could probably pull up. And then actually, you know what? Let's just pull it up real quick. Future Farmers of America has a brand guide, but of course the acronym didn't work. Farmers of America branding guides. Spelling. Good thing no one can see that. I lost the track. It was media and brand. If I was smart, I would have had this up. Okay, I think I got it. It's loading, and then I will pull it up. So, like, for an example, they have gone through and they've detailed everything about the brand. I just kind of want to skip ahead. So, identity, they show the emblem, all their text. uh, embroidered emblem, shows what it's supposed to look like. It's supposed to have a twill background, stuff like that. Not supposed to rotate it. And actually, a lot of companies, like I know PayPal is this way too, where they will say like, do not modify our logo. Don't change the colors. Don't invert it. Don't add text, stuff like that.
Right.
It's like right here, they show actually kind of a cool Lego scene here where they made the FFA emblem. So it's kind of one of the things to be aware of. But I mean, if your customer is coming to you and saying, you know, I need this done for a hat or whatever, hopefully they know whether or not their logo supports that or not.
Right.
But as far as like actually, if you are seeking to get a logo digitized or a design made or something like that, there's a couple requirements that we need to be aware of, especially for digitizers to think about. Like everyone knows, and if I ask Jeff, since he just popped in, what's the standard size for a cap for embroidery?
Depends on whether or not it's left panel. Usually I stick around 2¼ inches. Try to stay under 2.5. But I can go up to 2.5 by roughly 5 to 6 inches wide. Ballpark window. Unless if it's left panel, you're like what, 3?
Yeah, 3 at the most, depending on what hat.
If I were to say I'm like Smith Construction Company or something, I just searched Google for some stock images real quick. It's like this image here. Yeah, it would look cool on the side of a Chevy Express van or your business card or whatever. But on a hat, are you really going to want all that? And on a hat with, even if it just say it is puff, are you going to want the established in 1979? Is that something that probably has to be on the hat? Probably not. So that's kind of one of the things you can talk to the customer and be like, hey, let's drop this from the logo, just to make it a little bit more cleaner.
Right, and depending on what level of service that you offer for your end customer, if they're just coming in saying like, I want some screen printed tees and a hat, then you know the kind of the realm and the limitations of, do something simple on left chest. Full back, maybe that's a full back print. That's where you're going to want to put a website or a phone number or a tagline or something like that, or a motto. That's a bigger area, easier to read. For embroidery, it's going to be simplified. Or if you're offering full blown branding package where you're branding clothes and you're branding, websites and business cards and flyers and whatnot, there could be hundreds of different variations of the design. But a lot of times that gap between artists or designers and embroidery, they don't quite understand the limitations, because for print you can get pretty small detail, pretty small words, text that you're still going to be able to read and it's going to be legible. But yeah, just throwing in that media as far as embroidery, those limitations, and like I said, designing the design from the get-go is going to be, dodging a lot of headaches when you get to the embroidery side of things.
Yeah, I'm going to bring this logo back up again real quick. So like I said, this logo is cool on, the right medium, but like, I don't know if it's going to really let me zoom in, but like this negative line right here, this white space and that one and the space in between, to be able to capture that in embroidery is going to be kind of hard. So if you're having your designer make something from scratch, you'd want to tell them like, please don't have any lines that are going to be less than, like, depending on what your machine capabilities are, I typically don't go less than 0.8 if I'm going to do a satin, because I can get decent registration with that, because all I'm doing is patches, so I have enough stability with that.
Right.
If you're doing a hat, you're probably not going to go that narrow. I'm going to let the other two speak to that, but you're going to have baselines. So no thin lines, unless if it's like just a quick little detail and you're just going to be using a run line or a run stitch. If it's a satin, that's not going to work out very well.
Yeah, I think using those baselines is probably your best bet when designing, just because there's so many variations and so many things you have to think of when you're going from one garment to another, or even the size of the design. That 5 millimeter text you try to state as far as your minimum, things like that. The satin width on the design. I think if you do everything in that baseline, you can adjust from there a lot easier than just having designs like this from the get go. Customer approves, likes all the detail, likes the small little elements, and then when you get to embroidery, it's like, oh, by the way, we had to modify your design 30% to work for embroidery.
I mean, I got one right now. It's going to be modified 80% to work for embroidery because It's just way too much. But I think it's really important. And Justin touched on it just a little bit, is talking about a branding package, a branding guideline. I'm trying to remember what universities call it. Is it branding guidelines?
The University of Arizona calls it a branding guide. Yeah.
So some companies will come out with what's called a branding guide. And if you guys aren't familiar with them, I highly recommend that you look them up. It basically gives you all of the guidelines of how to use their marks, logos. Usually they have alternate logos. There's one contract customer I do work for that she always tells her customers to do a single monocolor version of their logo that will look good at like a 1/2 inch tall, with thick chunky lines. And it's because she's been doing this so long that she already knows by looking at a logo that, you know what, that's not going to work for embroidery. These elements aren't going to work. Those elements aren't going to work. And so when they start going into the branding guidelines, generally somebody's going to give you a package like this, they're going to understand more what goes into all the different merchandise. And if you come back to me and say, hey, look, I'm looking at this for embroidery and it's not in my branding guide, then that's something that you can also kind of encourage them to look into. Because branding guides, I mean, they're great. When I have a customer come to me and they work at a big enough company that has a branding guide, they don't really know what they want. It's simple. I pull up the brand guide. It tells me size, placement, colors, fonts. I mean, I know the university that is here in town, Iowa State University, their main logo that says Iowa, the second line has to be half of the height of the I. Mm-hmm. So whatever that lower text is, it has to be exactly half of the text of the I. And they actually have an embroidery guideline in there, which is really helpful when you go to get something made. You're not just taking a logo that may or may not work for embroidery. And I'll use a beautiful example is actually our round logo that we have. It looks really, really good, but you drop that thing down to 3 1/4 inches, 2 1/4 inches, and there's a lot of elements that just aren't going to be there anymore. But we also have marks for, things that are going to be embroidered, things that are going to be smaller. We have a consistent font, and these are kind of things that you can look at when when you're working with a graphics artist. You can kind of say, hey, look at these branding guidelines that are provided by universities, especially when it comes to apparel.
Right.
And it's the same thing, right? You're going with not just universities, but like Matt pulled up the FFA, right? FFA.
Yeah, FFA.
I got that right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he pulled up that one. A lot of times they'll have an apparel section in them, and it's good to have a graphics artist that understands the confines of not only embroidery, but embroidery, screen print, UV print, laser engraving, right? These are all things that you could drop into a monocolor logo that aren't going to work well with, embroidery is going to be gradients, laser is going to be gradients as well. depending on the laser. So branding guidelines are fantastic. And a lot of the things that we're going to be covering here are things that a graphics artist who hasn't necessarily looked at a branding guideline or hasn't ever seen one before, because I know a lot of ones that we find, they're people that are good at graphics art, right? They're not necessarily branding experts. And so this gives them something to go off. It gives them, instructions. It makes them think a little bit more, a little bit deeper about your logo and where it can be sewn, what can be sewn with. And it's not just sewing. It like I said, it goes into laser too, if you're going to try to laser your logo on something. Because ultimately, we want to have a logo that you can put on a pen, right? Easily identifiable on a pen, easily identifiable on a shirt, easily identifiable on a hat. And maybe it's that you lose some of those smaller things, like Matt showed with that construction. You drop the established in this date if you put it on a hat, right? You remove some of the details in the skyline. You take out some of the windows. Things that you're not necessarily going to see when you're standing 6 feet away. But when you print it on the side of a van, you want it there.
Yeah, as a decorator, I think you really need to keep in mind what's going to be the best possible solution for whatever garment that you're printing on. What's going to be, the cleanest, the most legible, instead of having just all the information, like Jeff was just saying, oh, this is my logo. I want it all on every single thing that I do. It's not reality, and I think they would be happier with a simplified design for embroidery or anything else than all the information that they possibly do. One thing that Jeff was mentioning as far as like university lockups, I know, I've been doing work with the University of Arizona for many, many moons. And before it was just kind of the real basic rules, like here's our PMS colors, here's how to use our trademarks. But they would release, the approved designs for each department, and they wouldn't take into account how it's going to work with print or embroidery. And a lot of times there was really small text or something like that. And according to their rules, well, this is the design that has to be done. And they weren't really thinking.
Hey, Justin.
Yeah.
Could you scroll in on that a little bit so we could zoom it up bigger? Fit the screen a little better.
There we go.
All right. But they've come a long way, and they've got people in their licensing department that understand the limitations across the board. And when we actually, there's an area online that we can go to that if we're looking for, say, College of Agriculture, like you see here, it'll pull up their branding guides for that specific department. And they'll have the basic logo that you're looking at, like you see here, where it has the University of Arizona. Then it'll have like the college name. Their lockup was what they call it, where the A is to the left, they have the vertical line, and then the text to the right. But they actually have in their branding guide, okay, this is our primary. There might be an alternative where they eliminate that top text. And even if there's, this is, once you get into embroidery and you're trying to get that A to a certain size, this might be a little bit longer of a design that they know might not work for embroidery on the left chest. So they even have promo/embroidery versions of the design. So they've done a really good job with telling you this is what you should use online, this is what you should use on letterheads, this is what you should use on embroidery, and so on and so forth. So their branding guide's pretty spot on, and how they've designed the designs, they're keeping in mind the limitations of embroidery.
I'm going to bring up a comment here by Cindy, because I think it's really important that we breach this too, as it does apply to universities. Just because somebody in a university comes to your shop and says, hey, we want you to put our logo on this, doesn't mean that you have the rights to do that. So particularly what Cindy says is also some branding logos, you have to be licensed to use them. Every university that I'm aware of, you have to be licensed to use their logo to be able to do their merchandise.
Absolutely.
That also means you have to pay fees, royalties, and have your insurance in order for your business. And that is absolutely correct. Just because somebody brings you a logo doesn't necessarily mean that they have the rights or you have the rights to embroider it. particularly when it comes to collegiate stuff. Well, I should say, especially when it comes to collegiate stuff. That's the one that I know that's policed more.
Mhm.
But it also can be that way for other companies. So it's always good to do your due diligence on that. Just, hey, do you have permission to have me put this on there? I want to say like Ford, Chevy, the car dealerships, the local dealerships themselves have approval to get their logo, that logo sewn on a garment, for them to be able to use it. But a university, they don't. So you have to go and make sure that you have the appropriate licensing to do that.
Right.
And definitely don't mess with Nike or any of the sports apparel or the House of Mouse. Avoid those like the plague.
And even within the university, like the University of Arizona, I know our licensing, our license holds the ability to produce product for entities and departments at the university. We can't sell a University of Arizona hat retail. Two different licensing completely. Not only that, but like we may have a department that comes in, says, "Oh, I want shirts done. Here's our design, or here's our lockup," and I'll go through the proper channels of getting that approved. And the department's even giving me designs that the university says, "Nope, it's not the approved design," because whoever it is in their department may just do a quick mock-up, knowing the kind of the general rules, but that's not the right verbiage or something like that. So, yeah, when it comes to the corporate stuff and the university stuff, definitely do your due diligence and make sure that you are producing the designs that you're supposed to. But I think the majority of people that kind of put together designs for people, it's for the local mom and pop place or even a local franchise or something like that, where you are probably dealing with the person that's can make those decisions of the design itself and what can and can't be changed. And I know you have those stubborn customers that want their logo the way they want it. But there was a quick here, kind of a mock-up thing that I did, kind of representing an idea of how to come up with a design, mentioning design colors, print colors, embroidery thread colors. Maybe
we have Justin's branding guide.
Exactly. This is my quick branding guide that I threw together. But yeah, it can show coloring that you're going to do on light garments, dark garments, alternative layouts if you rearrange different elements, maybe alternative colors where you do the design as a one color, like Jeff said, customers saying that tone on tone colors is something that's real popular. Getting into specifics like Pantone colors for printing, embroidery thread colors if they want to be specific. Or even like the line below where it kind of shows the sizing on embroidery and print, left chest size, the hat center size. And this is where those decisions can be made, knowing that the size is chosen at these particular notes, it's going to work. Taking the left chest design and taking it somewhere, say, "Oh, I want this in 3D puff." Well, that lettering is too small that it's going to work in 3D puff. So what's an alternative? Well, let's just do the logo mark only at a certain size, and that's going to have real basic elements that are nice and bold and work as 3D puff. So these are kind of the general ideas that you want to work with your graphic designer to not only come up with a concept, but to really think about the different uses that it's going to be done, specifically embroidery.
I have a
Right.
question.
And if you look at Justin's branding guide, it's consistency.
Yeah.
Right. Consistent font, consistent logo. Even in the monotone color logo, it's got the consistent JA. And that's what you want to be able to offer your clients, or when you're working with a graphic designer and you're coming up with those alternative logos, it's visually recognizing who it's for, what company it is. Because I look at every one of those logos, and if I saw them independently, I would pick up that they're all the same company.
Right.
They don't all have to say the exact same thing. If Justin came in with that JA on the left quarter panel of a hat on the bottom right, he's probably going to be wearing a shirt that has one of the JA digitizings across it. So not everything has to say JA digitizing.
Right.
It just has to be able to, you have to be able to visually identify that he is with that company. And if you're working with the graphics artist and they understand that, you know, the logo that they come up with, and I want to say, I mean, even my logo, right? When I first came out with it, I was new to embroidery. I didn't really know the constraints of embroidery. And so my logo doesn't really fall within the constraints of embroidery, but I now have alternate logos that I can use that will. And I think that happens with a lot of companies is you pull up this graphic, you get your logo the way that you want it, and you don't think, okay, well, now I got to sew it on a shirt. And then you think, okay, well, I want to sew it on a shirt. And you send it to your digitizer and they look at it and internally chuckle a couple of times. Don't judge. We've all done it, right? Somebody sends you that thing and you chuckle a little bit, but then you go,
And
okay,
you realize
well, now how can I make
embroidery
this work?
spelled wrong.
Right. Now, like when you're embroidery, the word embroidery is spelled wrong, and you correct that and you send in for new business cards and you spelled something else wrong. It happens, right? We all get that little chuckle, but what it comes down to is making sure that, you know, if your logo doesn't fall within the realm of the application, trying to have an alternative that is going to be utilized for that application and making sure that it's consistent with your main logo.
Right.
And I know initially when I used to talk to graphics designer, and I've changed my thought a little bit, is I would always say, well, the logo needs to fit within these constraints, right? And I've changed that since, I don't know, a year ago, 2 years ago. And now I'm saying, well, the main logo doesn't really have to fit in within these constraints. They can have the logo that they want, but we need to come up with a version that will work for embroidery that falls within these constraints. And then that's when graphics designers start looking at, you know, more of a branding package. What can I drop? How can I keep it? And it's really nice to have the creative person do that. I'm going to call them creative person, right? Because as a digitizer, I am less creative than a graphics artist, right? But I can digitize. I don't necessarily come up with the graphics as well as they do. And so as they're the ones that are creating the graphics, they'll look at it and go, okay, well, these are the elements that I really want to identify. And how can I make this work within the guidelines that they're telling me within, you know, width for satin stitches, narrowness, you know, is it going to be a satin? Is it going to be a bean? It really comes down to giving them the creativity to where they can come up with something that's gonna work for a new medium, and then that'll also make them look at other mediums too, right? If they go, oh well, that doesn't work for embroidery, I wonder what else it doesn't work for. And so now you might be getting a better, you know, graphic that'll be printed on a pen that you'll actually be able to read, right? Because you can pick up, I could put a really complicated logo on a pen because it's print, but if you pick up the pen and you have to hold it like 2 inches from your eyes to be able to see what the logo is, I'm old, don't judge. Then maybe that's not the best logo for that application.
Right.
Yeah, and I have my, I guess I didn't click the button. This is my first logo for patch phrase. You never would have guessed that other than by this poorly asymmetrical needle that is not really realistic either. But I made it look like a typical needle that most people would associate with embroidery. And this was done in Adobe Fireworks, so it's old. But I didn't have my name in there, so then I added my name, and I still didn't like it. So then I changed it to this, and then I forgot what the font name was, so then I had to redo the font name, or redo the font later on. So this is, I printed, I think, or had like 500 stickers made of this in like a 1x2 inch, and I was sticking them on the back of every patch. And I still just didn't like this logo because I had the word patch phrase on there twice in 2 different fonts, and actually there's 3 different fonts altogether. And it was just terrible anyways. So then I sat down and I'm like, I need to redo this. And then I settled with this, completely refreshed, more militarized, because the wings are actually like the British SAS style wings. But now I did this, and if you look at like my social media, I have like the actual reasons for each of the elements and everything in here, and why it's there and why it's important. But there was something, and I have my own branding guide that's internal to me, even though I don't follow it. But it's just one of the things that I thought of, and when I was doing this, is like, okay, well, this run is not going to be satin; it's going to be a run stitch. So I made it specifically for embroidery, even though I didn't really do a whole lot. But one thing I wanted to bring up when I was going to ask Justin this before when he had his screen up. I'm going to bring his up. So, surprise. So this is Adobe Illustrator, and you may notice he has his print colors and his embroidery thread colors there. How did you find out what embroidery thread colors you needed?
Well, I use this tool. The thread converter that we have on the embroidery-nerd.io.
Yeah. I hear that's a good one.
Yes, it's very good. You plug in the value that you're looking for. In this case, I plugged in a PMS color, and it gave me the available threads in Madeira that we use here. So that's where I picked up those thread colors.
Oh, so if I were to go here and do hand tone, I forgot what yours was. 294. 294. Wow, look at that. Match. Wow. Look at that. That's pretty nifty. Thanks for telling me about that. Embroidery-nerd.io. It's free. It's great.
It's a very, very helpful tool.
If you go with the paid version, you can match it to your threads that you have in stock.
Yeah, it is very nice. I mean, legal disclaimer, we own it and we made it. And we're not biased at all. Okay, maybe we are. But second point of interest is Adobe Illustrator probably doesn't have those Madeira colors that you're referencing there, does it?
Well, again, it can be.
It can be for the low price.
There's more.
Zero. I was going to say $0.99, but that implies it's not free. Oh, I got to click this button again. There is. I don't know if I actually have this shared somewhere.
I think you shared it in the Discord, which you guys can find by going to links.embnerd.com.
Yeah, Jeff will put it in the chat. But so I did all the heavy work to basically make this repository of all of the thread that we have on embroidery-nerd.io. And I made Adobe and Corel color swatches. So you can literally go through this website, click Adobe swatches, and you can download whichever ones you want. So if I want, let's see, Madeira Poly Neon 40, I can click it, and then I can click the download raw file, and then I can just import it in. If you don't know what you're doing, you can scroll down, and it tells you exactly how to use it. Or you just follow the little GIF, which is not a GIF, it's a GIF. And it shows you exactly in there. Boom. Now Coat's thread is in there, and you can use that color. And if you are not an Adobe user and you use CorelDRAW, it's the same procedure-ish, but no one uses CorelDRAW except for Jeff.
Except for Jeff.
Yeah.
Jeff uses CorelDRAW.
So,
Integrated.
It's basically whichever software that you're using. It's a swatch library that you're gonna, once you save it on your computer, you can call up a swatch library, and then the colors are gonna have the thread colors that you choose listed. So it's a good representation. It's good. It's a good way of, especially people that do print and embroidery, to have in their artwork as far as reference. What thread colors on artwork. But kind of getting back to the designer themselves, when you are seeking that designer, I think it's a bonus that you can talk to them to see if they've designed specifically for embroidery in the past, because that's some knowledge that they're going to have to know, instead of just looking at lines and vector objects, stuff that they can draw lines and whatnot. It's the relationship between the needle and the garment that they're going to have to think about. the limitations of how wide a thread is, and if you are training or dealing with an in-house designer, take them over to your embroidery machine and have them watch it and see the relationship between artwork and embroidery.
I do want to bring up some comments since we're about 36 minutes in and we didn't get to the early ones. So just say hello to Barb from Minnesota, Cindy saying good evening, and then so I asked how the weather is in your area. Cindy said it's hot, and he said it's excellent. Looks like it's just hot all around. We got it 83 degrees, very dry. Yeah, I'm in Nebraska, so 83 degrees is hotter than I want it to be. A good brisk 48, I think, is a good one. Actually, we'll go 47. I think that's a prime number. Suzanne saying it's beautiful in Rhode Island. At a concert on the beach, and then you come to join us. So that's cool. Thank you for joining. And then I don't think we pulled this one up. Cindy says she likes letting the digitizer set the size for the item she's sewing on. Yeah. Sometimes the customers are like, yeah, I want a 4-inch patch. And it's like, do you? Or do you want a 3.8-inch patch? Because then it fits on my 4-inch Velcro, and I don't need to use a lot of brain power to make sure it's lined up. Barb is asking for a link to the guide. We can put a link to all of the branding guides that we pulled up in the live. We'll put it in the description. I don't know why the words are so hard. And my puppy's behind me if you didn't see his tail. And I guess I can hide that one. Did we bring this one up?
We did not.
Yeah, so Cindy is saying that they're having to pay royalties on bands, clubs, sports. Yeah, it's all going to depend. I mean, you could have a school saying, yeah, you don't have to pay, and then they switch, or, new president in whatever club, and they change their mind. It'd just be good. Every fiscal year, probably just say, hey, this is what we're doing or whatever, and just kind of reconnect to make sure that you're not violating their latest rules. But I mean, they should communicate that too, but we all know they don't. And yeah, don't get caught making merchandise that you're not approved for, because that is no bueno. And depending on what it's for, especially if it's like any 3-letter sports franchise like the NBA or NFL, like there's YouTube videos of people getting their businesses shut down. I remember there was one like a year ago or 2 years ago of some guy got raided for like 15 grand worth of counterfeit.
Yeah, I want to say his stuff is on the on YouTube where they actually did like a sting where they ordered something from him, and when they went to deliver it and pay, that's when he got caught.
Yep.
And they raided him and arrested him and fines, and it was actually a pretty well done YouTube video.
Yeah, he was very humble about it. It's like, yeah, I screwed up, shouldn't have done it, but I'm documenting this so you guys realize it's a real thing.
Right.
I probably could find the video and add it to the description. I'll see. But yeah.
But I'll do this since we're here and we're talking about logos and alternative logos. I challenge everybody to look at their logo that they have for their business and think, would this work really well on small print, on a hat? Look at it and go, would it be a good idea for me to have an alternative logo? And if you do come up with an alternative logo, I'd love to see it. I'd love to see your original and your alternative, because I don't think it's something that people think about doing until they're challenged to do it.
I've seen, and I feel bad when this happens, I've seen where I've got new customers that are new to the industry, and designing the logo to your business, it's dear to you. You have fun doing it. And they've come to me saying, hey, now that I'm getting into this, I'd love to put my logo on hats. And I look at it, and it's like, I hate to tell you.
I'd love to put your logo on a hat too.
Yeah, but I'm gonna have to change this, that, and this. We may want to change a font here. We may want to remove this, and it's you got to remember, digitizers aren't doing it just to be difficult. They're doing it to make sure that they put out the best possible design that's going to work for your embroidery.
Yeah. One thing I did want to point out though, that when Matt showed his logo, it has the symbolism. I'm not going to words today, but Matt also has a alternative logo that's a straight line logo.
Oh, let me actually just pull up Illustrator.
I want to say it's on your website, the straight line logo.
Oh, is it?
How else would I know?
Oh, this. Yeah, I guess up here, it should probably be white, for contrast. But yeah. Oh yeah. Don't read the stories. I never actually did that.
Customer stories 404, page not found.
Yeah, it literally is. I'm trying to bring up my redesign. Oh, that's not the one. Oh, I gotta go. I'm very disorganized in my files, so please bear with me. Patchphrase.ai.
That's when I ask Matt a question and he thinks about it and then gives me the answer. It's almost as good as Google, saying, "Hey Google."
Really? It just closed. I closed the wrong thing.
All right. Well, we have Ramona here saying that she also uses the curved arrow with quick to stitch in her font. And that is her not rebrand. That is her alternate logo that she uses on smaller items. I want to say that she did patches 1 year and put them on bags when she went to AG. And that was her alternative logo.
Yeah.
Should I talk about file No. File organization is a whole nother topic because you don't really realize how important it is until you get a ton of files.
So this is what I created. So this is just a Illustrator file. Obviously, that doesn't matter. I was just trying to hide the fact that I had to burp. But yeah, I created like a monochrome one. I have full chrome, or not full chrome, full color. And then I have my social media background one. So like all my social media profile pictures are this one here. Business card, front and back. I removed my phone number because that's not actually the phone number. If you called it, it wouldn't work because it's a Google Voice and I don't answer that. And then, yeah, just like a little header if I use it on like an email newsletter or something, which I've never done either. But it's also the same header on my business card. So I kind of put everything all in one spot. They're just different artboards in Adobe Illustrator. And it was just a way for me to kind of get a better representation of everything and just making sure that, hey, will you knock it off? Just making sure that everything just flows nicely and all the colors match. When I made this logo, I was using Gunold for everything, so they're all Gunold colors, but that's no problem for the thread converter. But yeah, that's how that works.
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing is to keep in mind, like Jeff was saying, the coordination of all the logos. As long as you're staying within the certain limits of colors used and fonts used, if you stay consistent throughout, using only one element or eliminating another element for any reason is not going to completely kind of change your branding. Like if you start saying like, well, I want to use a script font when I'm using it on shirts, and then I use a block font on hats, and on hats I use black thread, on shirts I use pink thread. There's so many different directions that you're kind of diluting your brand recognition. So focusing on the look you're looking for, the feel of the logo, the colors of the logo, and then maybe branch out from there and say, okay, for different uses, do I want to include phone numbers and websites? Well, maybe in a big print or on a big magnet for the door of my car. Uh, you know, eliminating those elements when you're getting into garment decorating. For hats, maybe you're only going to go with the symbol or the logo mark part of the logo and using the text only on the shirts. Stuff where it just coordinates together, where you're the same theme, but you're not using the same design for every single use, because more than likely you're not going to be able to.
Yeah, and Ramona brought this up. You want to be consistent so people immediately recognize it's you. Yeah, I have business cards that have my old logo on it, and I have like 1,000 of my new logo. Doesn't mean I just took those old logo ones and threw them away. No, those are my bobbin cleaning cards now.
1,000 bobbins cleaned.
I may have thrown a box away, but yeah, I went ham with the business cards. But yep.
You keep getting a better price the more you buy.
I know, and then I made a mistake on my new logo business cards.
Did you spell embroidery wrong?
No, I put my personal phone number, and I didn't want that, so I got a Google Voice number, and then I printed them with that, and then I realized that the person who had my Google Voice number before went into collections, so then that number started getting a lot of phone calls for some guy named, I think it was like Larry or Lance or something like that, but
Bob?
No, it was definitely an L, but it was annoying.
No, we'll be honest. The girl who had Adam's phone number before him, her name was Maria, and she did not pay her bills.
I remember that conversation, but I'm going to pull up this kind of our segue to head on out. In our Discord, we have a channel under general discussion called Suggest a Live Topic. So this live topic today was brought by Phil at Toil and Trouble. He asked about working with a graphic designer. We kind of pulled from this and decided that we would make a live based off of it. So if you have a topic, or if you want to include like an image or something that you want feedback on, you can go ahead and create a post here. And then I can go boop, completed. Woo, celebration, confetti pop.
It needs to make the Atari sound.
Yeah.
Do-do-do-do. It's done.
We'll have you work on that.
All right.
But yeah,
I got it in my topics list of things to do.
If someone suggests something, you can go ahead and start a little dialogue with it, or make your own post, whatever you want. And feel free to check out our memes page. And I love this horse. It's not creepy at all. If you got pets, share your pet pictures. Just join in on the fun.
Yeah. All right, so let's go ahead and get ready to close it out here. Justin, final thoughts.
Final thoughts. Find a graphic artist that understands embroidery, and that way they can make sure that they're designing specifically for embroidery, so you have the best possible digitized file.
Okay, my final thoughts. Give that person your business card and take their business card, and you guys can send customers to each other. That's my final thoughts. All right, Matt, you're up.
Don't do small things in logos. Make them grand. Cool colors. And
Eat ice cream.
I mean, ice cream's good, except if you're lactose intolerant. So maybe I'll be a little more inclusive. Unlike Jeff, who is not inclusive. But yeah, just watch this live. And if you did, watch it again. You'll be good.
And make some suggestions on the Discord, and we'll cover some stuff that you'd like to learn about or know or chat about.
Yeah, give it a like. The video that is, share it. Do share it now with all your friends. People who don't even know what embroidery is, and just make them watch it. And maybe they'll learn and have a little more appreciation of what you do.
All right. Well, I'll go ahead and jump into some announcements. Me and Matt will be up at SPSI in Minnesota. We're going to be doing making patches. We'll be doing a make patches class where we'll actually sit down and we'll be making patches from start to finish. And we're going to be covering several different methods to do that. So you can find the method that's going to work best in your workflow and for your shop. So it's going to be a really good time. Me and Matt both have a lot of experience making patches, and we've done them in a lot of different ways. So it'll be really exciting. We're looking forward to that. You can find more information at SPSI's website or on their Facebook page. And yep, there you go. And I don't know, Justin, do you have any announcements? I don't know if you've heard anything back on anything in January.
No, I know I'll be at the Long Beach show. Details as far as specifics, I don't know yet. They're still working on their schedule and whatnot, but I'll definitely be there teaching something or other.
All right. Well, when we know, we'll let you know. But with that, guys, I'm Jeff Fuller from Folder Embroidery Works. We have Justin Armenta from JA Digitizing Studios and Matthew Enderle from Patchphrase, and we are all here representing the Embroidery Nerd. I'd like to thank you guys for hanging out with us, and we'll catch you next time.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.